I'm back with my youngest, Juliet, this week for another podcast with a child's perspective. Jules, what are we talking about this week?
So today we're actually going to be talking about the 3 pros and 3 cons about being on the road from a 10-year-old's perspective.
All right, let's dive in.
Mama says namaste.
Mama says namaste.
Making a family can be easy and fun.
Oh yeah, but raising a family can be a whole different story.
From spouses to kids to the crazy daily grind, life often directs us away from connection and more into reactive chaos.
If you're tired of that cycle and are seeking something beyond the picket fence blues, this is the show for you.
I'm Ashley.
And I'm Nathan.
And we're here to take you from chaos to clarity by bringing awareness and intention into your home, not waiting for one day, and highlighting how
the uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us.
Take a deep breath in and let's start a brand new day. With Mama says namaste.
Okay, this month we have been focused on travel, and we've talked about how to travel if you can't afford to, and how vacation can be more, and that idea of travel and adventure can be more of a mindset. And we've also gone into how questions to ask yourself before hitting the road or before taking that big adventure, and some of the all of those steps for getting prepared for travel. I've highlighted the 90-day family road trip, which is a course that I created once we were on the road for a while. And it kind of walks people through not just the logistical aspect of figuring out how to RV with your family full time, but also the family dynamic aspect of communication and connection. And so we've been focused on travel, and we're living the reality of it. After being stationary for a while, at the beginning of March here, we set off to hit the road again and go on another long RV adventure outside of the South, because we have been in Florida for a long time.
Yeah, we've just been bouncing between Florida and Georgia, and we're now taking off to other places, and right now we're currently in Texas, so yeah.
That's right, and heading west. So as I was looking at what are we going to have our topic for Juliet and I be this month, we came upon just this idea of just what are some of the pros and cons of living on the road when you are a kid. And Jules, you've been living on the road for the most part since you were 4 years old. The month after you turned 4 is when we hit the road officially full time.
So, yeah, I wrote down 3 pros and 3 cons, and yeah, let's dive right in.
Okay, so what is something that you have seen as an awesome pro for living on the road like we have been?
So the first pro was being able to make new friends. So this is kind of, well, I'll get to how it's a pro and a con, because it's pretty easy to make friends when you are traveling. You just go to a campground, you find some friends, you say hello. So you can become friends pretty fast. Now,
because typically when you're traveling, you're coming across kids in a few different avenues. Some of them are vacationers, so they're in vacation mode, so they may be up for meeting new friends and playing around.
Yeah.
Other times you're meeting kids that are travelers like you, and they know the jam, and they're ready to make those friends on the playgrounds because they recognize there are those moments of playtime that they can have.
Yes. And yeah, so it's really it's a nice thing to be able to do.
So do you like the newness of, not knowing who might be on the playground and who you might interact with?
So yeah, I think it's a little easier or funner for me, more fun actually, to have a new friend. It's kind of fun to get to know new people in every place that you go. So yeah, that's definitely a pro.
Yeah, and that's also something to just kind of lay out there, because I know that sometimes there is a fear with parents that, well, what about socialization? How is my child going to get any socialization?
Yeah.
You're saying you can go out and find it.
Yeah, you'll find it. If you really want to socialize, it's pretty easy to find people, especially in campgrounds. Or sometimes you won't find anyone, and then you go to a new campground, and there's like thousands of kids just playing everywhere. So, yeah, if you really want to, it's pretty easy to find socialization pretty much wherever you go. So, yeah.
I do have a question on that, though. When it
Okay.
comes to socialization on the road, I know sometimes there is this idea in adults' heads that socialization means you around all your peers.
Mm-hmm.
Who all do you find as friends when we're on the road?
Well, I find a variety.
A what?
The
Variety.
variety of friends on the road in places that I go. So it's sometimes, I guess it's just like whoever's there. Because,
Whoever's there, what? Are you looking for who looks like they're 10 years old?
yeah, I'm kind of looking for age groups, but I'm also just looking for people who radiate my kind of vibe.
Oh,
So
and what's that
it's-
kind of vibe? What are the things that you're looking for with somebody that would be a friend?
Kindness.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to know who's your friend by just looking at them, but that's why I go around and look for people.
Yeah. Sometimes we observe a little bit first.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes it's better to observe first and then
you can see a lot about somebody by their actions, can't you?
yes, actions speak louder than your words.
Have you had friends that you found along the way that were not 10 years old?
Yes, I've had everywhere from 3-year-olds to, or 2-year-olds really, or 1-year-olds.
Babies. Everywhere
Babies.
from babies all the way up to what?
Well, 70s or 80s or 90s or 100s.
That's right. We've had some friends that are old enough to be my mama and my grandma that have been friends of yours that you have had wonderful times with, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to socialization on the road, there's a lot of pros with people that you can meet of all walks of life from all over the world that may be traveling and vacationing or full-timing like we have been and,
Yeah.
and doing their travel adventures. And we have met so many amazing people. I mean, I know some of our full-time traveling friends are from Lithuania and from the Netherlands and from Europe. And
Costa Rica.
they're from all kinds of different places. And so we've met friends that are not even from America. We
Yeah.
have met friends of all different ages, all different demographics, walks of life. And to your point, it's not that just every single person out there is our instant friend, but we observe and
we get to know them without actually speaking to them.
oftentimes we look for kindness. We look for those people who are making a positive impact. Those people that we see that might be taking care of the land, picking
Yeah.
up trash on the beach. That's a great opportunity for picking up a conversation as well.
Yeah.
There are some great times when we see others that are helping, that are giving back, that are being love and kindness, and that's a magnet. That's a light that we look for
Yeah.
in others. Okay, so we've shared a pro. What about a con? What's a con of being on the road?
So, a con is actually being on the road with friends, because sometimes when you make these friends, then you go to a new spot, and it's hard to have a friend and to full time sometimes, because you're like trying to keep in touch with someone that's a long time away, like a long ways away, and it's hard to do that. So that's why having, like, sometimes it's better to not see those people ever again, but sometimes you really want to see them again, and it's very hard to get in touch, especially when you are in separate areas. So the only solution right now that I think we've found is just keeping in touch with text and just pursuing that way, because it's hard to not have a friend and then you might not ever see him again.
Yeah, when we were reading the book, The Wealth of Connection by Vincent Puglisi, we read this as a family, and one of the chapters was talking about your 2-minute, your 2-week, and your 2-year friends.
Yeah.
And talked about how we have opportunities for different ones, and sometimes along our travels we find the 2-minute friends.
Yeah.
And those 2-minute friends are really fun to play with for a
2
short bit.
minutes.
Yeah, we pull out the Legos and we let them hang, or we're playing at the playground, and they're fun for 2 minutes, and we know that we're not really going to be jiving with them for the rest of our lives. This was a fun experience on a campground.
For them. Yeah, for us, because we just get that, or for kids, I guess, because you get that socialization, and then you let it go. And so, yeah, it's nice to have a friend.
And then there's some of them
for
that
the
are
moment.
Right, and then you've got some that are the 2-week friends, and the 2-week friends are ones where
you want to play with them every day for 2 weeks, but after that you just get a little exhausted and you need a break.
And so, those are ones where we may choose to travel for a little bit with friends and then take a break and take a breather. And I'm grateful for some of our 2-week friends that we found that recognize that, where we enjoy each other and then we take a break and recharge and kind of take a break and then come back together at other times. And so there are these wonderful 2-week friends. And then you have your 2-year friends. And the 2-year friends are those friends that
you want to have text with. You want to be with them every day for 2 years. They're like your dream next door neighbor.
Right. And those are the long-term ones. And those are the ones where that's where we often do use the online world as our way to stay connected outside of that. And so while our kids are not all on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook Messenger and all of that, they are on Zoom and Skype for one cousin and iMessage. And they will message and FaceTime or Zoom with their friends that are these longer term friends.
Yeah.
And the beauty is you have some friends where you haven't seen them for years, and then you see them and you instantly pick up where you left off, right?
Yeah. And in the book Understanding Heart, it was also talking about those friends that you could pick up in the middle of the night and they would answer. And
your 3 a.m. friends, you're
your
right.
3 a.m.
Yeah, and Juliet's referencing her grandfather's book, An Understanding Heart by Dan Miller. And that's another one that we're reading right now. And he talks about those 3 a.m. friends, those friends that you can call in the middle of the night and you know that they've got your back.
Yeah.
And they're there for you. And so we've used some discernment for looking at the different types of friends that there are. And we recognize that there are seasons in life, and sometimes those friends are for a short season, and sometimes those friends are so long term, even if you don't see them for a season, you can pick right up,
yeah.
Right. Okay, so we've got pros and cons when it comes to friendship. What's another pro you have with traveling?
So another pro I have is a new backyard. That was my number 2. I feel like I just like how my scenery always changes and it's always shifting, and like you could be at this place where there's terrible internet and there's a murky pool, no kids there, no one's friendly, and then you can leave that just like that. And it's super simple. And then you go to this place where it's a party.
Right. Lots of changes of scenery. And yeah, I have to say that's a pro for all of us, because as much as I love, working on projects and things out in the yard, yes, there are times where, yes, we have so much, yard work or different things that we're wanting to do in our yard. It feels like our weekends might be just a project to get everything done or get the yard mowed or things like that. Well, that's one of the perks of traveling is you're not maintaining the yard. You just get to appreciate it. And we've gotten to appreciate some beautiful yards all over the place, haven't we?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a little bit more like a parking lot. And sometimes it's a little bit more like a beautiful big field. And we have so enjoyed the variety of scenery out our windows, for sure.
Yeah. And then this is also kind of a backing to this as a con
Uh-huh.
is never staying in one place for more than 3 weeks. So or sometimes, longer, but it's sometimes hard to be able it's kind of hard to make a connection and then leave it so easily because there's those places that you want to get out of, and that's something that you're looking forward to. But there's also those places where you don't want to leave it, and it's kind of hard not to have a sanctuary where it's always there. Like you go outside and there's consistent, you know what to do, that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess that is a pro and a con.
And I think that's why in our travels, the longer we have traveled, the more we've found those quote unquote sanctuary spots throughout the country where there are places where we know it's kind of a tried and true. Like we've been there enough times, we know the area, and it becomes kind of a home-based campground.
Definitely, yeah.
So like our place in Fort Gaines, Georgia, well, we have this has been Nathan's family lake house for his whole life. And so he's always known that area.
Yeah.
Well, it just so happens to have one of our favorite campgrounds. It's a wonderful Corps of Engineers campground on a beautiful lake.
Cotton Hill.
Yeah, Cotton Hill. And we love it. And so while we do bounce around a lot, Cotton Hill is a tried and true campground for us.
Yes.
St. Andrews State Park in Panama City is a tried and true campground for us. We know the area. Of course, the places we've volunteered, Bahia Honda State Park and Curry Hammock State Park down in the Keys, those have become those well-known, well-loved areas. So yeah, to your point, sometimes the constantly changing scenery is hard because we're always embracing the new. And that's where we've found for our sanity, sometimes it's helpful to add in some of the familiar and add in some of the comfort along the way of things you do know. So it can kind of help with that sense of security along the way.
So yeah, our next pro and con is also kind of a pro and a con.
I love these. Yeah, that you're kind of showing both sides of it.
Yeah.
This is great. And for the record, this list I'm hearing about at the same time that you all are. I asked Juliet to come up with some pros and cons of travel. So we're literally fleshing this out on the podcast because I've not even heard this list. So what's your third?
So my third is being all together. So sometimes that's a pro and
great.
Sometimes that's a con.
You are so right.
Like sometimes it's nice to be all together and like I guess I don't need to say this in a bad way, but kind of be forced to work together and be always together. As in the other perspective is a house and you've got your own room and you're pretty much divided, but in a camper you can't really do that. So so that is a pro and a con. The con is you don't get your own space, and sometimes that's a bit of a problem. And you have to just be able to walk outside and have that be your room because you can't really do it inside.
That's a good point, is that oftentimes those who full-time or who just understand how to travel and vacation and keep their sanity recognize that the RV is one small part of your living quarters. Your outdoors
is your other room.
Right. And so, yes, I know especially when the kids were really young and we had one that was way more introverted than the other two, oftentimes her getaway was not, retreating to a room or anywhere in our rig. It was going outside and sitting in a tree or going for a quiet walk in a field or something. Okay, so I completely feel you, and I know that that's something that a lot of people do worry about is, oh my gosh, there's no way I could live in such tight quarters with all of my family. So how do you do it? What helps you to understand that better?
So what helps me to understand how to do that is, I guess a solution is having a curtain on your bed if you can't escape outside sometimes. So if you're like in a parking lot, it's to have a curtain on your bed is also something. It just gives you a sense of privacy.
So that's one thing.
Work it out and then.
Right. So one thing we do is we respect our spaces. So even if that space is simply a bed, like it's literally just the mattress and their little cubby, that's their space, and sometimes that's putting a curtain, and so there is a place to kind of close a curtain and be done. And we do the same thing for us as parents. When we shut our back bedroom door, we say, don't come in here. And it may be that we are literally shutting the door to simply talk for 5 seconds without children around, or just meditate or do anything just to get a breather, just to have some privacy or some separation. So yeah, there is drawing some boundaries.
We have some boundaries that we definitely draw, and then I guess our whole family in and out does journaling as a way to get out their emotions, because sometimes you can't really in an RV. If you need to get that out in another way, journaling is always a open door for all of us.
You're right. And yeah, we've all been doing, Nathan and I have been working on morning pages as we've been going through The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. As you've noticed, we've got a lot of books going on here.
Yeah.
And we've really enjoyed doing that. And it happens every time. When you as parents start doing something, you'll notice your children start picking it up. Yeah. And every time we pull out our journals now, we have kids pulling out their journals, and they're journaling as well. So that helps a lot as well. There's one more thing I want to address, and that has to do with how well we know ourselves and how well we know the others in our family. Has that been helpful for you, for living in small quarters, that you know the different personality styles of your family members?
Yes, definitely.
How has that helped?
Well, when I know that Clara is mad, let's just say Clara.
That Clara is mad? Is that what you said? Okay.
That she's very angry. I know that she's a C personality, so I know I need her to give her space. I know I need her to calm down.
Okay, so first off, let's go into let's explain
Clara.
that a little bit more. So Clara being a C personality style, so that means if we're going to use our bird analogies here, Clara being like an owl, right? And so she likes to have a lot of details, and sometimes she can get overwhelmed. And the last thing you need to do, even though you want to, is go in and fix it all, right?
Yes, definitely.
And so you've learned that for navigating her, it's best to give some space. Okay. And then for Ellie, who would be our dove and our parrot combo.
So, yeah, sometimes you just kind of need to give her space too, because she needs to express it somehow. So she will usually read or journal. So yeah, that's all I've really found. And then with mommy or me, you gotta watch out, because we spew our anger sometimes.
And so we have to
you
learn
get it
that,
out
right?
more thoroughly than I do. Like, you get it out in a better way than I do.
How do you say that?
Well, you do journaling or meditation and stuff, and I just get mad.
Well, it's something I had to learn, believe me. And I will tell you, there are times where I did speak my mind when it was better for me to keep my mouth shut. Because sometimes our words can be popped out in anger, and they're not really helpful. And sometimes they're not even that true. It's just a moment of heated anger.
Yeah.
And
You just need to get it out on someone.
Right. And so you
feel bad about it.
But I think that's important to know, is that, I mean, here you're referencing all these times of us getting angry. Because the truth is, we're not happy-go-lucky 100% of the time.
No.
We have our moments, and we have our bad moods. We have our ups and downs of hormones with 2 teenagers in the house and 1 preteen. And we've got a lot of different emotions and dynamics as we're all learning new complex emotions as our kids are growing, and we're just constantly changing and learning more about who we are and who we want to be. But knowing our personality styles has really helped for us to figure out how to navigate each other in a supportive way. We know that, giving affirmations and support and encouragement
is better for an S.
Right. And making things fun is
it's
really
better for an I.
Is really important for an I, yeah. And then for you, oftentimes if we're wanting to motivate you, what are we going to do with you?
Challenge.
That's right. Yeah, I bet you can't. Or let's see what you can do here, because you like to kind of figure things out and conquer it, right? And tackle it. And speaking of tackling, while we are recording this podcast, I'm curious to hear how much of the playback is going to have the shaking and creaking of our whole rig, as it's an extremely windy day here in Texas today.
Yep.
And the wind is blowing through every vent and door and everything today.
Uh-huh. And so that was all that I wrote down on the list, but I've got one more that popped into my head while we were talking.
Yeah.
So it's also a flip-flop. It's about activities in the car. Like, how do you deal with that? Because I know at the beginning of our travels, it was TV would make us stop can-eyeing and make it easier for Daddy and Mommy to drive.
And what she said was can-eyeing, because we get a lot of can-eye, and we say, don't can-eye, especially when we first hop in the car.
Yeah.
Let's stop and assess and take a deep breath first before we get our can-eyes and our gimmies out.
And so as we've grown and the TV option was taken away, it's been more likely for us to bring a book, a journal, and some crochet or something like that into the car, and just as a side project. So, and then, so we've limited the amount of TV use that we've used, and that has helped us fend for ourselves a little bit with that. But I also
so what have you
know
come
that
up that
that's
you enjoy now?
Well, reading is always a fun thing. Journaling, because you'll get ideas. But for the most part, or crocheting a little bit sometimes. Not crocheting, cross stitch. And then for the most part, it's just looking out the window and seeing the views, because it's so amazing just to look out as your scenery changes. But when you're in places like the Great Sand Dunes, it's just the same hill over and over. You just do
sometimes the scenery gets monotonous, and sometimes the scenery is breathtaking. And I know that was something that was a frustration with Nathan when we'd pull out the DVD or movies, and the kids are watching movies and I'm working, and he's driving through this epic stuff and going, guys, like, y'all aren't seeing anything out your windows. And so we really switched to doing audiobooks and listening to music, or just in silence, and spending more time taking in the views as we were going through.
And there are those times that it's a really long car ride, and there's this movie that only we want to watch, and Daddy and Mommy don't, and sometimes we do that. So it's not just taking that away fully, but it is definitely...
It's definitely more focused on us taking in what we are surrounded by as well. And I think that's helped a lot, not just with our togetherness, like us being able to enjoy and take in a sight together, but it's also helped with our awareness, knowing the areas that we are around, which is important. Because when we look at safety, we're not looking at it just from a parent's eyes, but we're saying from a child's perspective, from their eyes, what do they see? What are they aware of? What can they look out for as additional sets of eyes in our home? And so they work with us in our safety.
Yeah.
So we've gone through some great pros and cons, and funny enough, they're all kind of they're both pros and cons. And what a beautiful metaphor for life. We often have at least two perspectives, if not many more, for how to view things and for how to see things. And is this the saddest trip ever because I'm stuck with everybody and my scenery is always changing and my friends are always changing? Or is it a beautiful atmosphere because you get to be with your loved ones and you get to adventure and explore new things and meet new people together? It's all about the story that you write. And we love to celebrate all aspects of what we are, what we're choosing to do together as a family, and look for the good. Look for what we can learn, where we can grow.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for talking with me on this podcast.
I'm excited to break this down into a blog post to go along with it and share these tips. I've got some other blog posts and podcast episodes that I can link to it about socialization and safety on the road and some things like that as well. So I will do that. And we'll continue to travel, explore, connect, listen, respect, learn and love. and celebrate how
The uniqueness in each of us strengthens all of us. Namaste. Bye.
1, 2, 3. Up with the rising sun, already on the run. Mama says namaste. Life is a tangled mess, and you don't have to stress. Mama says namaste. 'Cause today I will stand up and be all the change that I want to see in this world. Boys and girls, you gotta have to stand up to be free. Namaste in your heart. Take a deep breath in, then let's start a brand new day. With Mama says namaste.